Hey everybody, this is Vlad with QI Supplements, and today we're going to do our final video on detox, which the two main products would be to talk about right now would be the Endosterol and the Castor patch, and how to use it and best practices, things to watch out for.
So in the last video, in stage 3, we talked about the unfortunate consequences of not dealing with toxins and inflammation and infection. And in this one, the Endosterol and the Castor patch are aimed at, the locations where these things can manifest. For men, one of the most common places where you tend to get, people then tend to get some serious problems as they get older is the prostate. And for women, often the breasts. And a lot of it, prostate is very amenable to suppository delivery because you're right there, you're an inch away from inside of the rectum. So it's not that anything that's in our Endosterol product couldn't take orally. That's not why we made it a suppository. It's just it would be so dilute by the time it got there, it wouldn't do the work it wanted it to do. And the issue with Endosterol is that the average man, by the time he's 50 or 60 years old, his wife has more testosterone than he does. We know that women go through menopause, well, men go through andropause, and their testosterone drops, their estrogen rises, they start crying at movies, they lose some of their competitive edge in sports and in business, their sex drive and stamina decreases. And there's a number of reasons this happens. One of which is that they start converting estrogen into testosterone. Another is the testosterone they have starts to get bound up. So the Endosterol, it was made at the request of a friend of mine who's now deceased. He's an older gentleman and said, "Hey, can you make something for the prostate?" I said, "Sure." So while we have Endosterol to support the prostate, having said that, we've had women use it vaginally with very good success for some female issues. But the idea is if someone's dealing with prostate stuff, well, first off, the prostate's a pump, and it's also very labyrinthian if you look at it. So it tends to calcify, and a calcified pump doesn't pump very well. So if I were dealing with prostate, I would definitely be doing some metacardium to support the body in dealing with calcifications. But I would also do the Endosterol for the hormonal angle. And, we have had a number of men who have been very dire straits, like, peeing every 3 hours, couldn't sit down in the car, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. And the Endosterol and the metacardium between the two of them, they're, I can't make claims. I'm going to say they were very pleased. The Castor patch is designed mostly to go to support the body in dealing with scar tissue. Castor patches have been used historically over the liver and over the kidneys. I like them right over the abdomen of any woman that's ever had any kind of surgery, whether it's abdominal or abortion or a really difficult childbirth or anything along those lines, because all of those things can generate adhesions, where it makes the guts stick together, and now you got some problems. You start having injuries in the guts or in the female reproductive organs. So traditionally, castor oil patches are done. You put the castor oil on, and then you cover it with some saran wrap, and then you put over your heating pad, and it would make a mess. Your sheets would be ruined. And I thought, well, in the same way we wanted to make coffee enemas and turn those into suppositories, and liver gallbladder flushes, turn those into suppositories. I'm thinking, wow, castor oil is amazing stuff. How do we make it work easier? And we came up with a formulation that allows it to stay solid when it's in a fridge and then melts at room temperature. And then we came up with some adhesive sheets of saran wrap. And so basically you put it in the fridge, you take a spoonful of it out, and it's a gel, and you place it over wherever the area that has scar tissue that you want to work with. or you want to help detox. And then you cut out the fabric, you put it over the saran wrap material, and you put it over. It makes a seal, and if you're careful about it, you can probably have it on there for 2 hours. You can move around a little bit before it will finally find its way out the seal, as opposed to traditionally where you have to lay on your back, and within 20 minutes it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And we've had a number of people who have used it. Now, if you're who have been quite happy with the results. Now, if you're using this on a piece of scar tissue that is not amenable to like an arm or a leg, where you just don't have enough surface, it's too curved to really be able to get the material on, you can just rub it in and start working with that. And that kind of takes us kind of is a crossover between some of the more serious things of stage 3 and some of the anti-aging concept of stage 4. And in stage 4, you're saying, okay, you know what? I've gotten the toxins out, and I've got the infections and inflammation at bay, and I think my circulation's good. My surveillance system for cancer is dialed in. All I've really got is a little bit of scar tissue left over from some old injuries, and just the general, wear and breakdown of the body as I get older. So we're at the point now where if we survive the current madness, as we recorded in 2020, if we survive the current madness that our planet is experiencing right now, the first person to live to a 500 or 1,000 is probably already alive right now. It's probably some, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20-year-old that is going to make it to the year 5. Is going to make it, 500 years before, something happens, like a safe falls on its head or something ridiculous. I mean, you live long enough, eventually a person's going to slip on a banana peel. But we're getting to the point technologically that within the next 80 years, I think we'll crack the code for indefinite lifespans. And so you get somebody who's 20 years old and makes it out to 100, and they may keep going. But to do that, there's a couple of things. One is you want to clear all the scar tissue out of the body. Every time a person has an injury or infection disease, the body has a tendency to replace tissue instead of with the tissue that was damaged with scar tissue. And so castor oil is really good at dealing with supporting the body break down scar tissue, as is serapeptase, which is in our Notoplex product. So, what's the point of living for a long time if the person's, has no mobility and no range of motion and everything's stuck together? So, castor patch and the Notoplex are great for some of the things that it's not an infection, it's not toxicity, it's not inflammation, it's just some tissue that just didn't quite heal right. And then finally we have, and then there's also the Rejuvelon. And Rejuvelon would be our most classic anti-aging protocol. And one of the things that happen as we age is, and one of the things that cause us to age is free radical damage. And there's a couple of free radicals that the body really has some difficult time with. Superoxides and hydrogen peroxides and hydroxyl radicals and things like that. And the body makes a couple of antioxidants, the master antioxidants to deal with this. Catalase for hydrogen peroxide, there's melatonin, and there's superoxide dismutase. And they put out the fires that the oxidation creates. Think of it like a perfectly firing engine in a car just gives you power and exhaust. But as that engine starts to fail, starts to backfire, it's not perfectly burning the gas anymore. You get smoke, you get all sorts of stuff out the back. It's the same with the engines of the body, the metabolics of the body. When the metabolic engines of the body slowly start to fail, they misfire, and the way they misfire is they generate free radicals. And they misfire more and more the older you get until the body just really, and now it's every 10,000 cycles, every 5,000 cycles, every 1,000 cycles, and a free radical comes out. And at the same time that the free radicals are going up in production, the endogenous capacity to generate the antioxidants is going down. And that's why you see people, you see somebody at 45 and they look fine, and 3 years later you see them like, oh my God, they don't look like they aged 3 years, they look like they aged 15 years. Well, aging is exponential. It gets to the point where the body is generating so many more free radicals, and has simultaneously such less capacity for it that those two curves diverge. The free radicals go up, and the antioxidants go down, and boom, now they're totally aging. Skin's starting to sag, sight's starting to go, hearing goes, range of motion goes, everything hurts, and when that happens for someone, for most people, if you talk to an 80-year-old, hey, when did you start feeling old? If they're in good shape, they'll say, well, right around 60 when they start to hit. Other people will tell you in their 50s. And that's the process you're seeing. And you can take melatonin and superoxide dismutase and catalase, those three enzymes, but they don't survive digestion very well. So, suppositories to the rescue. We made Rejuvelon, which has those three most powerful antioxidants, and eject them rectally and they go right in. And, if you take that and all of a sudden you've got the best night's sleep in the last 20 years and your body just feels fantastic. And that was free radicals that was giving you a hard time. Now, antioxidants are only half the story. The antioxidant is a delivery mechanism for the electron. So think of an antioxidant like a truck with a loaf of bread going to a city. And it takes its bread and it delivers it to the local supermarket, and then it stays there, and there's no more bread for it to deliver. And so, the people in the city are hungry, so they say, send more trucks. So that's taking antioxidants. It's more trucks, each with one loaf of bread or one electron. And it helps, but it's not really what you need. What you really need is more electrons. Better to have, if you have a starving city, which is better, 10,000 trucks with one loaf of bread each, or 1,000 trucks with 1,000,000 loaves of bread waiting for them to go back and resupply.
Yeah.
So you have to have the electrons. Now, we evolved in an electron-rich world. Anytime your foot touches the ground, your hand touches a tree, you're in the ocean, you have an inexhaustible and infinite supply of electrons. So when you have enough electrons, you don't really need that many antioxidants, because you've got, the electrons are what the antioxidants are shuttling around. So yes, it's important to take antioxidants if your body's no longer making them, right? If a person's 50, 60 years old and they don't make them anymore, yes, by all means, take antioxidants. Having said that, they will only be as effective as your electron pool is in supply.
Yeah.
Right. So we made a machine that will donate electrons. Why would you need to do that? Well, it's because you're not spending your life barefoot on the ground, the source of all electrons, and you're around a lot of electrical devices. Every device that has current, which is all electrical devices, the act of electricity traveling through a wire, which is current, generates a vacuum in the immediate area, sucks all the electrons with it. So just having this earpiece in my ear, I'm pulling electrons out of my brain. Just putting my hand on a mouse, just touching a keyboard, being around any electricity, it sucks electrons out of you. And then, yes, you can go take antioxidants. And if you're over 50, you probably do quite well with them. But what you really need is the electrons. Now, if you think of every cell, all 31 trillion cells in the body has little batteries. The electrons is the charge on the battery. Now, if let's say you have an RV and you drive over the summer, and when winter comes, you put it in your garage. Your battery will slowly discharge, and you don't want to come back in the spring to a dead battery, so you put a trickle charge on, which is just enough electricity to keep that battery going. That's what grounding is. People who go outside barefoot, they're grounding. They're trickle charging. They're getting just enough electricity to keep a good battery healthy. But what happens if before you put the RV away, you realize you left the lights on all night? Battery's dead. You can't put a trickle charger on that. It's not going to recover. It's not going to charge that battery. It's the same thing with grounding. If a person, unless you're living as an Aboriginal, people aren't charged, the batteries are down, and so just putting their feet on the ground and grounding will be a little help, but not as much as it could. So what you need for the human as well as for the RV batteries, you need to charge the battery back up and then put it on a trickle charge. Problem is, let's say you not only left lights on all night, but that happened for a month straight. Now this battery is not only dead, it's completely dead. And what happens is it can't even take the charge now. You try to charge up that battery, it's not charging. You take it into the local car shop and they're like, hey, can you charge this battery? And you're like, no, it's completely crystallized. It's got full lead sulfate crystals. This battery is not recoverable. You need a new battery. But we can't do that with 31 trillion cells of our body.
Yeah.
We have to recover our batteries. So then you go and you do a little more research and you find out, yes, you can recover these completely dead batteries, but it's a very expensive, specific piece of technological equipment that puts voltage spikes into the battery to break down the crystals that formed, and then you can charge it, and then you can trickle charge it. Well, that's what the electron charger is designed to do. It's designed to break down the crystals that are in the human battery so that you can then charge, you can get a charge, you can recharge yourself so that you can then trickle charge. So like when I started using it, first I was just dumping mad amounts of crystals out of my tissue. You could see it in my urine. I mean, it was just so much stuff was coming out. Right? You couldn't even, it's like a little snow globe. You shook it. And that's all the crystals breaking up and coming out. We can talk more about the toxic crystals forming in the body. And so that's the voltage spike, right? And now, when that phase is over, I was able to get to the next phase. It was just charging the battery up because my batteries were down. And so the first phase took about 2 weeks. The second phase took, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And I was just charging and charging and charging. I'm now at the point where I trickle charge. My batteries are so full up with electricity that all I've got to do is, get on the machine for like a minute or two a day. And just going outside barefoot is enough. But we have to work your way there, and that process can take a year for some people. And then the antioxidants have what it is that they are designed to transport, the electrons, and all sorts of things. And we could talk an hour just on the things that happen in the electron charger, about how parasites don't like the electrons. And you can often see, we've had clients with cups of worms and liver flukes come out alive when they put electrons into their body. And they go, oh my God, they're alive. I'm like, yes, you want them coming out alive, because if you kill them, if the person who goes after parasites in the wrong way risks killing them and having them die someplace where they will never leave, like inside the liver. And then they break down, and then if the body doesn't encyst them properly, all the viruses and fungi and toxins leak out. And if it does encyst them properly, not cyst now. Or you just piss the parasites off and they dig deeper in. Electricity makes them leave alive and whole. They just head for the door. There's so many things that electrons will do. I had a little precancerous growth of my nose dry up and fall off. 2 weeks into it, I had some peripheral neuropathy. It was completely gone. There was a fellow who started using electrons who had I think even a car crash, and lost sensation in his leg 47 years ago and started feeling like a twinge in his leg. And then a couple months later, he started feeling the heat in his foot. Getting the body full of electrons is one of my favorite things and more powerful protocols to do. And, Vlad, have we got one of those units to you?
Not yet.
Not yet. We got to get one for you to play. You're still a young man, but I think you'll like it. Yeah, well, it's me. Me and my brother both kind of experimenting on ourselves, I guess, with everything. And what works, we pass it on, right? But it's been interesting. And some of the things you were saying, I do have a really interesting. I've had a kind of in Russian they call it elephant skin. And essentially it's skin on my foot. I have a piece of skin. It's about this big, which absolutely has zero feeling. It's just dead. It's not dead that it's rotting, but you touch it and it feels rough, like dry. But you can pinch it, you can poke it, you can put a needle in it. So the nerves are damaged in that area.
So, and I've had that for as early as I can remember. I've had it. So I have no idea why or how, but I'm interested in, I think, theoretically speaking, that electron machines should be able to do something.
Well, the other thing you can consider is nirvanic acid, which we have in our Nervodyne product. When I started getting into detox, one of the videos I saw years ago out of the University of Calgary was a video showing mercury being injected next to a nerve cell, and then they showed you the nerve cell with them kind of shriveling up as the myelin sheath dissolved.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. So what do? You can get all the mercury out, but now you've got this totally fried nerve wire. Well, the myelin is actually, babies are not born with completely myelinated nerves. That happens, in the months after they're born. And breast milk, and this is one of the reasons it's so important to breastfeed, contains nirvanic acid, which is one of the things that supports myelin. So it turns out there's a tree in Asia, a maple blow plant, I don't know what it is, and it makes a small amount of nirvanic acid. So we have the extract of that made, and we combine it with a few things, and with the idea of, okay, the nerves have been damaged, the toxins are removed, but the nerve is still damaged. Nerves are very slow to heal. Here's the next best thing to breast milk. It's nirvanic acid extract.
Yeah, and it's actually been a very popular product for a lot of people. So it's worked quite from what I've seen, it's worked really well with a lot of clients.
I'm glad to hear that. When I found out about nirvanic acid, I wanted to go and buy the supplement, and there was none. I'm like, oh boy. All right. Well, if this research is this good, and no one has access to it, I'll help. I don't doubt that in time, because this has happened with a lot of products I've made, people would be like, oh, that's a good idea, and if it's something I have, so I don't doubt that someone else will come to market with nirvanic acid, and which is the hope, right? The hope is that it gets out there. So, and at the moment, as far as I know, we're the only supplier of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. It's a huge help for a lot of people from what I'm hearing as feedback. So, okay, I guess that kind of covers everything, right? We've talked, and I mean, and the goal is with stage 4. I mean, that one you could probably repeat a little bit more often, right? With the Rejuvelon and the Nervodyne.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be focusing on antioxidants while the body's full of toxins, because the toxins are constantly generating free radicals. So, yes, you want the fire extinguisher, but stop, smoking in the gas station. Get rid of the fuel, get rid of the thing that's causing the problem. Now, some people, may need to do both. They need, as they're detoxing, to also take antioxidants because they've got so much toxins they can't sleep, and they're full of inflammation. But at some point in time, the detox will be done, but they may still need some antioxidant support because of their age, because they're just not making the antioxidants so much in them. And no matter how detox you are, at a certain age, a person's going to generate free radicals, not necessarily from toxins, but from misfiring cells, just because we're an imperfect system. The bodies are amazing, but they're not going to last forever necessarily. At our level of technology. And then the electron charger, I mean, I need less and less and less. I was completely addicted to it when I first got it, hours and hours and hours a day. Just like, trying to get me off that machine was like trying to take a water bottle away from a guy who just made it through the Sahara Desert. You could not separate me from the machine. Just my body would not stop demanding it. And now I'm at the point where, like I don't even have a unit now, because I had somebody say, oh my God, I need one. I'm like, all right, take my personal unit, because I've got more coming in a week. And, I can be without it. But it took me a year to get to that point where I was charged up enough. I didn't completely need it every day.
That's good to hear. That's pretty good. And yeah, and I mean, your body communicating back to you is going to be kind of the critical piece, right? I mean, once you start feeling that, and once you start listening to your body, so you can go a lot further. You know, you can feel a lot more things working, and you know, with a lot of the peptides that we teach, I teach all of the customers is I can't tell you how much. I can tell you a baseline of how to take it and what to kind of look out for, but you know, once you really start taking the stuff that really kind of takes your body to a different level, it's, you know, you really got to be in communication with yourself and really see what's best for you. So
I'm very glad to hear you say that, because I completely agree with you. You know, I take Zoibin, for instance. You know, I'll say, hey, a teaspoon a day for 3 days, then a quarter a teaspoon a day thereafter. But if you're feeling like, oh, you know, I really need a quarter a teaspoon every hour, go for it. You know, that's your body talking to you, and developing that kind of relationship. And not everybody can do it. Some people, they don't know. And so if you're one of those people that just can't feel it, well, then just use the baseline that we give you. But if you can feel it, and you're saying, and you feel like you need more or less, more frequent or less frequent, you know, completely honor that voice that you're hearing, and, you know, go with it.
Yeah, exactly.